Hello and welcome to Football 360. This week's one-to-one is with a guy called Jamie Brassington. Jamie's currently the head of goalkeeping at Throttur in Reykjavik in Iceland. It's his second spell there, and he's experienced an awful lot for a fairly young coach. As a player, he was at Luton as a young kid before playing a reasonable amount of semi-professional football whilst starting to develop his coaching career. He coached at Burton Albion in the academy there before moving on to Colchester United, so he has a lot of experience of the professional game in the UK, and particularly developing young players in English professional clubs. But then, as I say, he's been in Iceland, and his most interesting assignment for me, anyway, was being appointed as the national team head of goalkeeping for Taiwan when Louis Lancaster was the national team manager there, where he had to deal with a number of barriers, including the language barrier, including some cultural challenges. But his journey is one that I find inspirational, really interesting to listen to his experiences. Some of his anecdotes are brilliant. His reflections on Icelandic football culture and some of the reasons why it's an amazing place to work for him at the moment, and an amazing country to work in, and an amazing country to be a football fan. So I think you're all really going to enjoy this. I really think that Jamie has an awful lot ahead of him as a coach, and I think his body of work already is very impressive. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the second edition of Football 360 for this season. I'm delighted to welcome Jamie Brassington onto the show. Hi Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are things with you?
Good, thanks mate. Not too bad. We haven't started football here yet, but getting pretty close to it. So anticipation is near peak level now, to be honest, for me. So good stuff. So right, I'm going to go straight into it. Ask you 3 or 4 questions just as an icebreaker, a warm up if you like. Yep. So to start off with, your favourite player ever and why?
So being a goalkeeper coach, this might be a bit of a surprise to you, but Alan Shearer is my favourite player. Obviously, growing up watching him, Blackburn, Newcastle. I just used to love the way he played, and for me, he was someone I've always looked up to. I just thought he was a fantastic role model for people to watch.
Good. You're the first one to mention Alan Shearer, but I think there's pretty good reasons there, so not bad. Okay. Secondly, your favourite team ever. So not necessarily a favourite club, but the favourite team that you enjoyed watching. The favourite 11 players.
Obviously, when Mourinho first went to Chelsea, enjoyed watching his teams there. It was something different for me. I think I like the way he sort of personified that team, the way they worked, what they achieved. Obviously, conceding so few goals during the season when they won the league as well. I'd say they're up there, and obviously Barcelona. During the times of Guardiola when they're winning the Champions League, I think they were just fantastic to watch. Yeah, two slightly opposing kind of styles of football in some respects, or different approaches, but appreciate them for different reasons. 100%. For me, there's more than one way to play, and I think if you're a master of either one, then you deserve the credit that you get for that.
Brilliant, great answer, nice one. Okay, a little bit left field this one, but along a similar theme as we were talking there with the 2 managers. So. There are 2 teams playing in a cup final. Let's say there are 22 best players in the world. You're the chairman of one of those teams. You have to pick a manager to get you a result. So not to build kind of an ethos, not to build from kind of the foundations upwards. Literally just to take that group and have a mini camp and then win that game. So from a tactical perspective or whatever it takes to get over the line and win that game, who would you choose and why?
I think I'm choosing Mourinho. He won obviously the Champions League with Porto. He's gone there with Inter and delivered with Inter. Managed the best clubs, managed the biggest players. He knows what it takes to win on a big occasion. So for me, I'm taking him all day.
Love it. You're not the first person who said that. That's for sure, and with good reason. Okay, final question. Tell me and tell our listeners or something about Jamie Brassington that not many people will know. So it could be something completely left field, outside of football. Yeah, tell us something out there that's a little bit different about you.
To be fair, not a lot of people know a lot about me anyway, so this should be. But yeah, from a very random point of view, I had when I was at school, I was probably like 12, 13. I actually had a story that I wrote for my English paper published in a book. So I'm
Wow,
theoretically a published author.
Very good, very good. What was the story about?
It was about Hercules.
Okay.
We had to make some up in just a short story, about a page long. It just went into a book with all other kids through competition, and yeah, mine was selected to go in.
Nice. Okay, so you've got something to fall back on if football doesn't work out.
Yeah, I don't write that much these days, so hopefully not.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. That's a really nice start. Okay, let's go into it. So, obviously, you worked in Burton's Academy for a while before going out to Iceland.
Yep.
I want to focus on the change that you experienced. You know, the experience that you underwent in that move, the realizations and kind of the stuff that you needed to adjust to in Ireland. We've had some great conversations over time about your experiences there, and I really want to get some of those out and share them with a wider audience, because I found them incredibly interesting. So can you tell me a little bit about, I mean, first of all, first impressions when you got to Iceland, and then how kind of life grew on you a little bit there, and how football and the changes in kind of or the differences between the UK and Iceland, how they kind of occurred to you, and how you processed that.
Yeah, so I arrived in Iceland in March, and there was snow covering everywhere in the sort of 45-minute drive from the airport into the city where we're based. And obviously back home, snow, and there might be 1 inch of snow on the floor, and sessions are getting cancelled.
Yeah.
I was chatting with the manager on the way in, like, is this normal? He's like, yeah, we just keep going all the way through here. And I was like, okay. Got to the training ground, and I was fortunate enough, after about 10 minutes of arriving at the training ground, I was in my first session. The manager had a one-to-one with one of our centre backs who was getting back fit. At lunchtime, he come from work, and did an hour and a half's training on his lunch break, and then went back to work. And so straight away for me, just the dedication of people over here towards football and their love for football was
Nice.
a massive, like, eye-opener to what I was to expect, really. Obviously back home, the love of football's high, and obviously you've got all the professional leagues, but it is massively rivaled here. Everyone I've met has a football team or enjoys football. There might be a handful of people that I've met that haven't believed in that. So yeah, I just think the love for football here has totally eclipsed everything I expected, and I think to a certain extent at times they are more passionate about their development as a person, as a player, than maybe what some people are back home.
And why do you think that is?
I think there's obviously Iceland's quite a developed country, but there's not masses and massive opportunities for people over here. And
Sure.
I think they do see football professionally, whether it's in England, Germany, Spain, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. There's a few guys playing in Russia. I think they see it as a viable career and a way to go and further their lives, see the world, and then come back after they've finished playing.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, what's the competitors in terms of other sports over there?
So there's a handball league, there's a basketball league, and then there's football. They're the big ones, and then there's, like, for the girls, there's volleyball. They do have a bit of ice hockey here, but I don't know a lot about that. So yeah, I would say for me, football's probably by far the biggest sport.
Yeah.
But handball and basketball are also massive, and it's really interesting to see sort of the mixture of people that will support every team at one club. So whether they've got just the football, the basketball, and the handball, yeah, that's your team, and you support them, and there's sort of a sense of a whole club feel rather than a football club feel.
Yeah.
But the football, for me, from what I see on TV and the TV programs, football's massive.
Football's king. Yeah, I mean, I certainly experienced that here in Spain. You know, you think that football in the UK is king, or is the most popular, is certainly, you know, takes up the most column inches and the most media space. But I wasn't completely prepared, if I'm honest, for what I saw when I got here, which wasn't so much about the participants, the traditional participants, the age groups, the coaches, whatever, because I kind of expected all that. But it was more about the people around on the periphery. So, you know, when I walk down the street on an evening and I look into people's front rooms, everyone has football on. I mean, I think in the UK, you know, I don't know, let's say, an old couple watching the television, they might have EastEnders or whatever on, but here it feels like there's not a chance that anyone would have a soap opera on if there was any game on TV that could be watched. I mean, any game.
Yeah.
It really feels like it remains a passion and it remains such a part of the culture rather than just, I guess it's, the commercial. We could talk all day about the money in the English game, but ultimately that's part of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a great example last night was we were looking at possibly moving our training session because the women's national team had a game.
Yeah.
So we were going to move it so the girls could watch the game because some of them they wanted to watch it.
Awesome.
We couldn't do it, so what we ended up doing was watching the second half, and there was probably 15, 16 girls from our under-14s team that were in there watching the game on TV. And then there was obviously a lot of media coverage on that. The football website here was covering it, and it was quite a big deal. So, and then they had a game the other day, and it was exactly the same. And there's sort of very little difference between the coverage of the men's and the women's.
Yeah.
There's the national teams playing, whether that's football, whether it's handball, I don't know as much about basketball, but definitely handball. Like everywhere sort of just stops, and we must watch our country play and passionate about their country succeeding, which for me is great. And I've adopted that mentality, and and there's one of my national teams now.
Brilliant. I mean, it must be really refreshing as a coach, working full time in the game to be, to be in that situation, because I think football gets criticised a lot by society in the UK, particularly, probably less so over here. So it must be great to be a part of this national obsession, this national, because the enthusiasm and the positivity that surrounds that, I assume, will be higher than it would be in the UK, for example.
Yeah, 100%. There is football websites that will do the English stories. They'll do Icelandic stories, but it's very rare. It's constant criticism. It's more sort of positive and look at how well we're doing. It's great to see this player succeeding, and they're just, again, around the national team, especially the passion on a match day is ridiculous. Like outside the stadium, people doing the clap that obviously has become quite famous over here. Fans outside singing, banging drums, and there's just a real buzz around the area. The stadium's full every time they play.
Yeah. Okay. So, and do you think that's changed because of the success of the national team and the result against England in the Euros and that particular phase?
Yeah, obviously the team getting to the Euros was massive. I think about half the population travelled over to France to watch that, and I just find that the success they've had has just helped build the momentum of what they're doing. I think it's made Europe and the rest of the world take note of what they're doing here. And I think, again, it's something the country can be really proud of with what they're achieving. And I just think that momentum then into the World Cup, and the people that were out watching the games, they had fan parks everywhere. Everyone was in their Iceland shirts. There was a massive sort of buzz around the country of what can we achieve.
Yeah. And
again, for a country of such small people to get onto that world stage, and obviously they drew with Argentina. The goalkeeper saved the penalty. That's just
amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's amazing. We at the time, I remember being amazed about it. I think time kind of dulls, you kind of forget a little bit, and you move on to the next thing. But when you look back on it, and you look at the numbers, you like say half the population travelling. I mean that's phenomenal. That is phenomenal, and I recognise it, and I can identify with it a little bit. Growing up and coming from a small island like Guernsey, there's only 60,000 people, so a much smaller example, and obviously being involved, playing and coaching and managing, the pride and the national pride in a small nation is accentuated, is magnified. It gets lost and diluted in the bigger nations at times, doesn't it, sadly?
Yeah, 100%. And like I just said there, like we would go out and watch the games with Icelandic people. Would either go down to the fan park. I've been to a couple of games here, and just the passion they have. Because of the small population, it's sort of like a club team when they play as well. But everyone has shared passion, and it would be like going to watch, I don't know, a League One, League Two club where obviously you get more local supporters going to them games.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, it's great to see, and it's good to harness as well. Like for me personally, with the goalkeeper that's been playing, his story is that he worked very hard. He would have his breaks from work. He would go and practice his kicking at the football club. Just him with the balls. He got extra training, progressed. I don't think he made his debut till he was 26, I think, in the national team. He went pro around the same time, and there's a bit, obviously the big stories about him making Iceland's advert for the World Cup for Coca-Cola. So he was doing stuff like that. And I think that's just a great example for the kids over here that actually, if you do work hard and you have a bit of talent and have a passion, then why can't you go and do it, even if it is a little bit later on in your life?
Amazing. That's a great story, and it's great, like you say, for you to harness it as a coach. It's phenomenal. So, I mean, I remember reading an awful lot about coach education, the development of the coaching culture in Iceland around the time of all that success. But what's your take on it? I mean, I'd like to know, I guess, how you just talked about harnessing, which is a great word, that really fantastic culture that's been built up around the game and around sport in general. How do you think it's been done to this point? And do you think there's more that can be done?
Yeah, so for me, like I said about their passion and their desire with football is so high. I will see probably 50, 60 kids today at sort of 3 o'clock who have got a bag on their back with a football strapped to it, and the kids just play football all the time. Obviously, it helps being at the club and things, and being around where they can play football. But for me, it's just the constant playing and the time and the facilities that are available to them is what has helped drive the success of development in this country. Of course, there's a lot about the coach education in the sense of there's X amount of A licensed coaches per player, which to a certain extent is the case. But again, with that small population, it's a lot easier to get through people on the courses and things like that, and get the teachers on and
is it really as it's stated in the numbers? I mean, I know it's not here in Spain. I can say that categorically that the numbers here, there's a I don't want to call it a box ticking exercise, but for me, the value of a coach, of the numbers around coach education and numbers in certain categories don't equate to the same value that you get in the UK. That's just my opinion, but
yeah, I would agree to a certain extent. Obviously, in the UK, there's so many coaches, so that the maybe coaches that are just starting out, or maybe coaches that are still educating them in the early stages, and then the sort of high level experienced coaches. There's such a broad gap between them, but there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people on the spectrum in between. Whereas you've got, maybe there might only be 6,000-7,000 coaches here. So the guys who are just starting out on the top level, again, the amount in between is so small that you're going to have some coaches who may have a B license, but they've got it early and they're still developing a lot. Or you might have an A license coach in the same stage, and they've gone through the process very quickly just based on the lack of numbers. So here, it's a lot. I would say it's a lot easier to get on courses than it is back home, due to the volume of coaches.
Okay, I'm with you. But in terms of, do you think that Iceland has a future in terms of exporting coaches?
I think they could. There's a few coaches here, especially in the men's Premier League, who I've not had a chance to see their sessions, but I've seen their teams play, and I've spoken to people who I believe has a good value with what they say. There's a few coaches here who are very good. I believe there are some coaches in Scandinavia, in Sweden, in the women's game. There was a few Icelandic guys that went out to China, and they're working with Chinese national teams in the women's section. The current technical director of Hong Kong is an Icelandic coach. Okay. So there are people that are making the move abroad and going away, and
Cool.
I think there is a chance, and they work closely with the Danish FA on their A licenses. So they're looking at other countries and how can we help our coaches to be better, to then hopefully progress to full-time roles and then progress abroad and start sort of making pathways in the for coaches as well as players.
Yeah. Okay. And to flip it, how do you see the influence of British coaches over there? I mean, you're one of a small band, I would suggest over there, and there's quite a lot in other Scandinavian countries as well. But how do you see your impact? What are you bringing to the game?
I just feel like as British coaches and the guys I know worked in England, worked in Ireland, worked in America and things. I just think it brings a little bit of a different perspective on how maybe the game's played or how to conduct training sessions.
Yeah.
Especially from a coach ed side of things.
Sure.
And then the other one for me is how can I put this in the best words possible? I just think for me personally, working with Burton and Colchester, I've had that first-hand experience of working in an academy, working with an under-23 side with players who are getting first-team games in League One, League Two. I think you've got a bit of a better understanding than what maybe a coach with the same sort of age and coaching years I've had, of how can we help develop this player to maybe sell him abroad or to make him a first-team player. Of course, as coaches here, we've worked with kids all the way through, and they're playing in the Icelandic Premier League, which is a good standard, and that's obviously a different skill set. So I just think that knowledge you can bring from other people you've worked with back home, and knowing what sort of it takes for professional players, I think that's what we can add to the game over here.
Awesome. And I mean, so do you think there's more? Do you think that's likely to continue? That trend is going to become more. You think there's space for more, or does Iceland need more coaches to assist with that process?
I wouldn't say there's a massive need for it, because the numbers of players playing abroad, the amount of players that are getting sold from Icelandic clubs into Europe,
it's quite prolific.
It's so high. Like talking with one club, and they're pretty much getting 2 players a year sold to clubs in Europe, which productivity wise that's outrageous that you're making money off 2 players a year. And like, these boys aren't going to like random clubs. They've got one lad who went to Ajax, so there's an Icelandic lad playing for Ajax's youth team at the minute. They've got players in youth academies in Serie B. Like I said, they've got a lot playing out in sort of Norway, Denmark, Sweden. Runason's obviously just gone to Arsenal. He started off playing in Iceland, so obviously, and then obviously you've got the big guys that are playing out there. So I don't know if there's a massive need for it as such, but I think it's good to have. So I think it's always good to have a mixture of maybe local and foreign, whether that's players, whether that's coaches, and I think that's beneficial no matter where you are in the world. I agree. Good answer. But
that like you say, the numbers are if they're exporting. That percentage of players out of their total pool, you've got to look at it and say they're doing a pretty good job. The club who I was like sort of referencing there, they sold a goalkeeper to Brentford. So I think that was 2018. So we actually played against him in his last game. So we played him in the first division, and then a week later he's getting his medical at Brentford, and he's played in the championship for them. He's been out on loan. And so it doesn't matter what position they're playing, doesn't matter where they come from, whether they're from the city, whether they're from a small town, the players are getting opportunities, and that's a credit to the clubs and the players themselves for what they're doing. For sure. Cool, great stuff. Okay, I want to bring the conversation on a little bit to specifically goalkeeping, because you're the first goalkeeper that we've had on here. I know I came to you a few years ago and asked you for a little bit of help with goalkeeping topics and integration of goalkeeping into training sessions, not having a specific goalkeeping coach at the time working with me. So tell me a little bit about your views, I guess, on how that particular topic has developed in the last year, in your time in the game, because I know, if I think back to when I played or whatever, the goalkeepers were largely, everyone knows the story, but they were stuck out either, working on their own or working in pairs or whatever. pretty much left to their own devices, and then brought in when either shooting or crossing or some activity that they could get involved in, and they would play an active part in, actually started. And these days it's a lot different. You certainly opened my eyes a little bit a few years ago on that. So tell me some of your views on that, and how do you see it kind of being applied?
So like you're saying, like, well, I remember when I was younger. So when I was sort of first starting off, when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that finding a goalkeeper coach was nearly impossible. It was only the professional clubs and the academies that had them, and maybe the odd guy here and there. And I used to go to a weekend down in London and do a 3-day training camp, so I could get some goalkeeper training for the year. And that was always the highlight of the year for me, was 3 days of training, so I got to practice what I needed to do.
Awesome.
And then sort of from there, obviously the amount of goalkeeper coaches that are becoming available for players to develop a skill, because it is a unique position in a team sport. Obviously, if you're a right back and you're controlling the ball, it's no different to if you're a goalkeeper or you're a striker. So there's that bit stays similar whether you're an outfield coach or goalkeeper coach. But then obviously adding the elements of catching crosses, saving shots, distributing your hands, it's so different that you do need extra time, and you do need people with that area of expertise to step in. And so that side of things has grown a lot, as you just mentioned there, from back when you remember. But over the last sort of maybe 4 or 5 years for me, the value of a goalkeeper coach in terms of their opinion on players or on tactics, or how they can be utilised in a training session to work with the goalkeeper, a back four, maybe the midfielders, whether that's an in possession topic, an out of possession topic. That's just grown rapidly, and for me that's a great thing. So I've never wanted to be labelled as just a goalkeeper coach.
Sure.
I think because you go through your outfield qualifications at the same time, you watch football. A lot of people have played outfield. A lot of people have played in goal. I just want to be seen as a football coach, and not. I don't want to be seen as a striker coach. I don't want to be seen as a midfielder coach. I don't want to be seen as an outfield coach. I just want to be someone that can add value across the board, and because maybe you're the head coach, I'm employed as your goalkeeper coach, your assistant coach, whatever label you want to give it. But maybe you can connect with one player extremely well, but maybe another player you don't connect with as well, but I connect with him or her, and I can then maybe drip feed information in another way to them to enhance their performance, and then together we create a good team. I think that's the word I would use, would be a coaching team.
Yeah.
It's no different between a goalkeeper's connection and a centre-back's connection. The staff have to be on the same team and on the same page as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, I think, tactically, Nagelsmann says something along the lines of, he only believes that maybe 30% of the game of management is tactical. It's the rest of it is about human emotion. And as you say, from a goalkeeping coach, I mean, I know, looking at goalkeeping coaches that I've worked with, both from a coaching perspective as a player, some of them were very quiet in the background, and some of them were very prominent because they have big personalities, and they made a big difference in the dressing room, particularly, if not quite so much on the training ground back in those days. So I can kind of identify with what you're saying there for sure. But I mean, in terms of, you talk about yourself being a coach, across, more of a generalist coach rather than just a goalkeeping coach. I mean, are you applying that in different ways at the moment? I mean, are you doing very technical stuff one day, and then another day you're doing something more generic?
Yeah. So for me, it depends what team I'm working with and what age I'm working with. So
sure.
with the youth players we've got at the club, then I will give them their specific goalkeeper coaching. And work with them and sort of liaise with the head coach and their assistant coach on how they're performing in games if I don't get to see them play.
Okay.
Sort of if I'm noticing stuff with their passing or their receiving skills, I'd touch on with them, like, hey, can you have a little look at this?
Yeah.
And they'd flip it back to me and go, oh, look, we reckon he might have been out of position here on these shots, or the high ball he's struggling with because he's moving early. And I think we have a good collaboration there, that I'll go and work with their technical and tactical stuff in and around the goal, because that is my for a lack of a better term, area of expertise.
Well, that's your bread and butter, right? Yeah.
But obviously, people aren't stupid. People can see, like, it doesn't matter what sort of coach you are. You can see if people are making mistakes. You might not be able to correct it, but you can identify their mistakes, and maybe someone else can help you correct them.
Sure.
So we have good collaboration there. And then with the seniors, especially with the men's side, we'd work a lot on set pieces where I would lead and the head coach would drip feed into that.
Awesome.
We'd work on dealing with crosses. I would lead on that. And there were some days where he just wanted to step back and watch the session, and instead of being fully immersed in it, so he could see if there was anything needed tweaking. So then myself and the assistant coach at the time, we would split it, and we would take different aspects there, and that worked quite well in my opinion. It's the same with the women's head coach. Now we're both in the office full time. We're bouncing ideas off around session design and how can we adapt this, adjust this, team selection. Again, looking again, signings. I'll be sent videos of players that we're looking to sign, and I'll give my opinion on that.
Really?
So that's sort of how it works day to day with me. I'll obviously, while the players are warming up, I'll take the goalkeepers. If we've decided that the goalkeepers are going to be in the whole session, then I'll look at working with them in the game, or with them in the back four if we're playing a game or a phase of play. Or we'll schedule an extra training session.
Okay.
Like the girls here for us are excellent. Like some days, if the men have got a game and we can't get on the pitch, they'll train at 6 o'clock in the morning before they go to work and before they go to school. So we'll do a training session. We did one last Thursday from 6 a.m. till 7:30 in the morning, or 7 till 8, whatever it was. But they're more than happy to train and push themselves. And if players are given that sort of commitment to their development, then we have to match that as a minimum. And I think collaboration is the best way to get there.
Awesome. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, first of all, that you get that variety. I mean, it really sounds like an interesting role and a really enjoyable role, and that you're valued, and that you get to work with players who've got that level of motivation. And you don't have to spend your time working on quite so much of the psych and social stuff to get them to the level where they're achieving. That they're hitting big numbers on those, because it's already there, so you can work on the technical, the tactical, and your craft ultimately, and your passion. So
which when I come over and I first heard about this, I was like, really? Like we used to, I was like, that's crazy. We used to do like kids camps as well. Like, not kids, we'd have players come in, and this would be maybe April, May time, so that they're still in school. And for like 3-4 days, we'd put a little session on at sort of 7 o'clock in the morning for an hour. They'd come in, they'd train, they'd get some breakfast given to them at the club, and then they'd jump on their bikes and cycle off to school, and then they'd come back in the evening and train again. And just like you say, when you've got that level of motivation and passion to succeed, it just makes life so much better, because then training session was high intensity. The kids love being there, the seniors love being there, and you just create this sort of they create a great environment, and it's one where if players are not in that same mold, they either buy into it or they get found out.
It's amazing. It sounds like a wonderful culture to work in. I mean, are there any negatives? I mean, are there? Tell me a little bit. There must be some.
Yeah, when you've got a session at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning and it's minus 20 degrees with the wind ripping through, and you've got like a foot of snow that you've got to clear off the pitch beforehand, that's not the greatest.
I'm with you, but it adds fortitude and strength of character clearly to the players.
100%. Like I say, we probably had that scenario when I was here the first time, probably 5, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, maybe even more. And not once did any of the kids send a message saying, no, I can't make it today. They were never late. They were right, we start at this time, we'll get the snow shovels out and let's go. And some of the days it was that bad, we would just clear out the 6-yard box in the goal and an area where we could shoot from, because by the time we cleared the rest of it, it would have just settled on the pitch again.
Yeah.
But, kids are used to it. They love it. So
wow.
So yeah, it adds a different dimension to the session. Obviously, if you can do it in this weather, you can deal with shots and crosses when the ball's moving all over the place. What are you going to do when it's a nice calm day?
Yeah.
So I think it adds to the stress levels as well. If you can deal with the stress of this now, then a match day theoretically should be a lot easier and more comfortable and more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's certainly, the the idea that a lot of young footballers are mollycoddled, certainly in the UK, and they don't have to do any of the manual stuff. I remember working with YTs 18, 19 years ago. I'm just checking the year, a long time ago, and them doing the jobs and them getting a fairly harsh experience at times certainly gave them a level of resilience that you don't get in modern players. And I know that's society, but it sounds like the balance might be about right over there, because that hasn't all gone in terms of the menial work and the expectations and the responsibility of everyone digging in for the team and digging in for whatever jobs need doing.
Yeah, exactly. And that was sort of similar in Taiwan as well. While I was there, it was for example, if we were moving the goals from onto the training pitch, it wasn't just the coaching staff, it wasn't just the youngest players. We've got guys playing full time in the Chinese first division on serious money, and they were the first guys picking up the goal, and it was a team effort. Again, the same here. Like in terms of kids getting themselves to training, because they all play they come from the local community. You come down to our training ground on a summer's day in June, July, and you'll see like 150 bikes where the kids just cycling. They get themselves to the football pitch. They're either training or playing with their mates. They'll cycle home, a bit like what it would have been 10, 15, 20 years ago in England. They've got that culture here. The kids will walk from school to the football pitch. They'll bring their own football so they can play until the time the session is. And yeah, like sometimes you have to like kick them off the pitch and say, look, get off. We need to train.
Oh.
At the same time, if we're not using the whole area, then we'll be like, look, no problem. Practice your football, play your head tennis, play your those, whatever it is. Here, it's not a problem, but we'll need this area in say 40 minutes. And the kids are like, yeah, no problem, thank you, and they really appreciate that. But the facilities it'll be unlocked from it could be unlocked all the time over the summer, 24/7. And the kids will just turn up at sort of 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll just start playing, and there's none of this like back home where the pitch is constantly locked and you must pay 50, 60, 70 pounds to get on there. Yeah, it's just come and play, but understand that there are sessions on here, and you will have to move when the session's on.
Yeah, and it's just common sense, though. It's just a common sense way of doing it, isn't it? And, I mean, clearly you're working with kids who are, respectful enough to work within the boundaries that you set, so that you can get the best out of the facility that you need, because it's got to be the priority. But why not let the kids knock about on there? I mean, we want to engender a love in the game, and we want to help them prosper. Then it doesn't make sense, does it, to lock, to put locks on the gates, particularly when you've got 4G, 3G pitches that can take the hammer. I understand, on a decent turf playing field, then fair enough, but it's a different kettle of fish on artificial grass.
Yeah, exactly. When it would have been not last week, the week before, we had a sort of the coaches had a week off because of most of the youth seasons had finished. So like the kids, you can have a week off and do whatever you want. 3 o'clock, look out the window, what's going on? There's a 10v10 game. Kids have set the goals up on the pitch, on like halfway across, playing in the half horizontally. I think there was about 14 lads, 6 girls, and they just split the teams up and they just started playing, and no one cared who was on what team. I think they were about 12, 13 years old, and they just went and played. And I was laughing with the women's manager, like, why are we actually here if the kids just do it anyway? They're probably having a better time than half the things, and they're going to learn so much, because they don't want to be rubbish in front of their mates. They want to be the best player, because if you're the best player, you usually get the most friends. People want to pick you first, and you're well liked. So yeah, like
I think
it was great to see, and that's one of the pleasures of having the office down there, just seeing what kids do and how they go and play. And just I think back to the village where I'm from back home, and there's 2 grass football pitches down there, and every time I go home and I've been around that area, or I've not heard anyone playing football down there, I've not seen anyone, don't see any kids in the streets playing sport, and it's refreshing to see, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're going to make a lot of people jealous listening to this, because there's a lot of coaches who are, just crying out for, an environment that enables kids to do that, but B, the kids who have got that passion to do that and that love for the game that's, perhaps, society these days stifles a little bit. I mean, what about the video games culture there? Is that an issue?
Oh, all I ever hear the kids speaking about when I'm walking around in my very limited Icelandic is Fortnite and TikTok and all this. So they're no different to any kids anywhere in the world, but it's just the easy access from living in the local neighborhood. And again, the culture here for me on a whole is eating relatively well, exercise, being with your family, taking advantage of being outdoors and in the nature. And obviously, in the winter we might only get 4 hours of sunlight. So when it's 24 hours or 20 hours of daylight, make the most of it, and they do. And that for me is one of the things that I like about this country, and is why I enjoy being here.
Good. Oh, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, mate. Really, like I say, I'm quite jealous, to be honest, because it sounds like you've got an awful lot of ticks in the right boxes over there. It sounds amazing. Okay, you talked a little bit about Taiwan. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I'm particularly interested to understand. I mean, a huge cultural difference, obviously, from the UK to Iceland to Taiwan, but more so the difference from club coaching to national team coaching and the training camp culture. How did you find that?
Yeah, so like you said, the culture was a big shock. The furthest east I'd ever been was I had a week in Turkey on a training camp. So we were in the hotel, we'd go to the pitch and train, back to the hotel, gym session or a meeting, and we might pop into the town and have a meal in a restaurant somewhere, and that was it for a week. And so yeah, going over there was, again, it was a 16-hour flight, 8 hours into Dubai, 8 hours into Taiwan, which was a shock for me. The longest I've been on a plane before was 5 hours. Arriving, and the lack of English. In the city centre, everyone spoke English. Outside of that, it was very limited amounts, and that was a challenge, trying to order food, go to the shop, listen to what was going on. So you had that to deal with, and then see, as a national team, you only get together international breaks, which are March, June, September, October, November. So you only see the team for probably 2 weeks, 10 days, maybe 5 times a year. So going from coaching 6 days a week, probably 2 sessions a day, 3 sessions a day in some cases, to having no sessions for 2 months was quite a challenge, and it is one that I enjoyed to have, because it gave me a lot more time to focus on other areas. So planning, reviewing, analysing teams and players, and going to watch games and trying to select a squad. From that point of view, was something very different. It was good to have. And then, like I say, with the planning, you would only get maybe 3 or 4 sessions. So your planning and your session content, and how much you kept the ball rolling, and how much tactical advice you were getting across, and things like that, had to be spot on. So for me, it helped me that way, in terms of I wasn't just going from day to day to day, putting sessions on, and just going, well, some days you might, we'll just do this because it might be convenient. There, you don't have convenience. You have to nail it, and your session has to be spot on. And we're players who are competing at the highest, in my opinion, the highest level of the game. To represent your country and play for your country means it doesn't matter whether you're from England or whether you're from, if I take a small population like Iceland, it doesn't matter where you're from, you are still the best person in that position in your country.
Yeah, massive privilege,
That's an achievement. And playing against a team like Australia, who have got Premier League players playing in them, if you're not preparing, you're going to get beat 12, potentially 13, 14 nil. Not even going to get a shot on goal, not going to get out your half, whatever it might be. So I think they were the biggest differences of going in there. But the hardest one in going the other way would be connecting with players.
Yeah.
You don't see them very often. You're not with them in the morning. You don't see them at breakfast. You go, hey, how's it going? What are you up to? You just see them maybe at a game, and then you see them on camps, and that was
why was that? Why didn't you get more downtime with them?
Because obviously they were training with their clubs. Obviously, if we were going into clubs and it looked like we're favouring clubs, then obviously that's not a good position to put yourself in. I was quite fortunate because again, working there with Louis was excellent and his ideas were very good, and we come up with the idea to go into every club, or at least offer every club my services to coach their goalkeepers, because goalkeeper coaching over there is what England was like probably 30 years ago.
Okay.
Very, very few goalkeeper coaches. So we provided an option for every Taiwanese Premier League club that I would go and do a session and make it available for every goalkeeper from the league to attend.
Okay.
So I managed to build my relationship that way. Obviously, occasionally you'd go out and have maybe a meal with some of the players. But when we've got sort of, we had a boy playing for Crystal Palace in England. We had a boy playing in Canada. We had maybe 3 or 4 players playing in China. So it's not like you can just go and meet with them. So it was stuff on the phone. And
no, but on the camps, was it more of a holistic kind of, you get the group activities?
On the camps, obviously, it was a lot different. So, like, when we went down to breakfast, you'd see the players at lunch.
Sure.
We'd have individual meetings, group meetings, and stuff like that. But it's just nowhere near the same exposure you get on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, if you're working professionally at a club and things like that. Like I say, even if you're working for a grassroots club, you'll probably see your kids 2-3 times a week potentially.
Yeah.
But that's every single week of the year.
Yeah.
So you can build them relationships, and you have a lot in common. The language barrier as well was also an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, that it feels to me like that would have been a bigger one, really, because to connect, I mean, language is and verbal communication is so important. If time is limited, if time isn't limited, I mean, like over here, for example, when I'm coaching, I speak some Spanish, but certainly in the early days when I didn't speak any or very little Spanish, I couldn't have built a relationship with a team. I could go and technically deliver a session.
Yep.
But if I had to influence the people, you need more time to be able to do it. And my assumption is it'd be the same.
Yeah, for me, it was exactly the same. Obviously, when you're out on the grass and you're doing the session, and if the session's enjoyable and you're having a little laugh or something funny happens, someone scores a decent goal and you start cheering, celebrating. That it doesn't matter what language you speak, everyone knows what that is. You can build a connection that way, which was good. But obviously, at times, I would be trying to have a conversation, or Louis would be having a conversation, and we would say what we need to say, and then the translator would then translate it, but maybe wouldn't say it in the same tone or like whether we was excited, angry, whatever it might be. It would just be, right, I'm just going to translate word for word. So the player would be sitting there, they'd listen, they would then say what they've got to say back, and then it would translate it, and obviously takes twice as much time as well. So you might have 10-minute, 15-minute slot to talk to that player, but you're actually probably only getting 7 minutes of conversation in.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, it's such a good point there. It's never really occurred to me. It's fairly obvious, but like you say, the tone of voice and how you want to deliver it. With a translator, I hope that the best translators out there, maybe Mourinho did this for Bobby Robson as an example. If he's going to deliver something with gusto because he's not happy about something, or he wants to fire a warning shot across a few players, then there's absolutely no point in doing that if the translator's completely deadpan and, as you say, just literally translates it without adding emotion.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the good things we did as well, obviously Louis and I spent a lot of time together over there, and we managed to talk a lot of football and about plans, and we would speak with the translators. Their English was fantastic, and we would just be like, look, if we shout, we need you to shout. If we are saying it in a joking manner, we need you to do that as well.
Good.
We would have conversations and maybe run through our sessions with whoever we were working with, so they knew what we were looking to get out. they knew what we were going to be doing next, and if they had any questions about what we were doing, they already knew what the answer was. So it weren't like in the session you would say, right, we're going to do this. What about this bit? They knew what was going to be happening, and
so the basics they were able to deliver themselves.
So just lose any confusion, and
yeah,
because that was the main thing. Obviously, when you're dealing with high level players, you need to know your stuff, and two, you need to keep them engaged. You need to keep challenging them, and if communication breaks down anywhere, then people start losing focus, and then you could potentially lose credibility. But unfortunately for us, I thought we dealt with that very well, and but the time over there was very good, and the goalkeepers, my Mandarin got a little bit better. I could say I could instruct a few things, and the goalkeepers' English improved as well. And between the 4-6 of them that we would have coming into the camps, they would be able to piece together everything that was going on, and it got to a stage where we probably only needed translation for maybe key tactical details, whereas demonstrations were good. Getting them to observe each other worked, and it was just a lot of different coaching methods that you may not use if you speak the same language fluently. Yeah,
it's a great challenge. It certainly stretched me, and I think I think any coach to get, not saying you need to go and work in another country to permanently and change your whole life, but any coach to go and try and do a little bit of coaching in another language and then have to rely on non-verbal communication and other kind of little tactics that you might be able to deploy to get your message across and to affect the players and to get some progression for the players I think it's a huge learning tool, a huge opportunity. So you talked about Louis Lancaster there, obviously working with Louis with the Taiwan national team.
Yep.
If you had that time again and you were in the hot seat and Louis, you were in Louis' role, how do you think you would structure it, given that, because your work day to day in Reykjavik is long term? You're looking at player development medium to long term, really, aren't you? Working with younger players a lot of the time, and therefore it's not about the results on Saturday. Whereas, that's your perspective there. Your perspective in training camps and World Cup qualifiers and Asian Cup qualifiers or whatever. You've got to take it down and crystallise it and distill it and deliver something completely different. The objectives are completely different. So given that, how do you think the two scenarios different? How would you apply that?
Well, if I was back there in his shoes, that's a very good question. I don't think I'd do a lot differently there, if I'm going to be honest with you, because we had two jobs basically. One was obviously to get results for the national team and try and progress to get into the Asia Cup and into the next stage of the World Cup qualifying and stuff like that. And the other job was to develop the players, because obviously Taiwan is ranked, I think we were 125th or 26th when we were there, so obviously quite low down in the rankings. So we still had to develop players and work on the coach ed side of things to try and help coaches develop and to sort of create a pathway for the youth national players and to liaise with their coaches and try and come to a common goal about raising the profile and the
I get it. So it's slightly more, a slightly bigger role in terms of guidance, for a nation rather than just a group of players and results.
Yeah, exactly. So you take someone like Gareth Southgate, for example. His only, I say his only, that's a harsh term to use. But his main role is to get the team to win games, to qualify for tournaments, and to win tournaments. Yeah. He doesn't need to go, I need to develop my left back, because he's got 10, 15, 20 left backs playing Premier League football, championship football, who he can rely on to come and play games for him. Whereas we might only have 3 left backs, or 2 left backs even. And okay, how can we get the most out of this player? How can we develop him? And how can we liaise with clubs and to make sure they're getting what they need to play for us as well as their club team?
I'm with you. For me, I look at it and think, certainly from experience working with a smaller nation in Guernsey, but the challenge with that, I think, is if you try and coach and you spend too much time on coaching and not enough time on clarity of message, clarity of game plan, and understanding, then you know the balance is difficult to get right. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so just to finish off with, because we're coming towards the end of the discussion. I mean, you must be one of the most adaptable coaches out there. I mean, you know, there's some great work being done by British coaches in lots of different nations around the world, and luckily they're getting more exposure and more, you know, their learnings are being shared, you know, far and wide, which hopefully that, you know, this will add a small piece to that process. But yeah, such an adaptable kind of guy, given that you've worked from the Far East, you know, to Scandinavia. What are the key learnings for you? What do you think the difference has made? What do you think that experience has? What difference, sorry, do you think that experience has made to you if you compared Jamie Brassington, who's travelled the world and you know, delivered in different languages, different cultures, and so on and so forth, to Jamie Brassington, who could have stayed with Burton Colchester, you know, in the academy system, and no doubt had a great experience, and perhaps possibly even had a higher profile in certain circles. How do you compare those two, and how do you feel about that?
I had a conversation around this sort of the other day. I think it depends on like who the person is that's doing this. So for me, a coaching abroad was always something I wanted to do, because I like to learn new things. I like to visit new places.
Yeah,
part of a different culture. Because at the end of the day, football's football. Wherever you play, whoever you work in, it obviously is 11v11. Whoever scores the most at one end and stops them at the other is going to win games.
Yeah.
So on a purely football point of view, for me, it's not that different. Obviously, the standard of player or the standard facilities does change, but I just feel that it's like you said. I think adaptable is the big word. I feel that if you throw me into an environment, whether it's with a group of novice players or senior players, who might have 100 international caps, for example. I just think what you learn by coaching different people, how you can adapt to that situation, how you can identify their needs. I think my ability to do that has got a lot better than what I think it would have if I'd have stayed at home and followed that academy path. Working with seniors was something I've always wanted to do, but in the most sort of professional environments I can. And obviously the opportunity of working abroad adds to that value and adds to that opportunity. So I think me sort of being able to follow what I want to do was how that's helped me as well. And I would say it's made me a lot more happier than doing my coaching and stuff. Yeah. I was at Colchester. I was enjoying my job. I was working with great players. The staff there were excellent.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot. We had a great blend of just people who had come purely through the coaching background and just played sort of grassroots football, never really played any senior semi-pro stuff. We had guys that were scholars at the club who then dropped out of the game and come in coaching. We had guys who had won championship playoff final. We have guys that have played in the Premier League for many different managers. We had guys who played for their country. We had guys who played in European competitions. So sort of that blend of people and that sort of wide range of experiences, that was a massive help. And that was probably the biggest thing I missed moving here, because the experience of the coaches were very different. But
yeah,
their different experiences again was something I could learn from and take from. So I just feel that again, the amount of people that I've met and that again's opened up my eyes to different ways to work, different ways to connect with players, stuff that might be seen in England as, oh no, that's a big no, you can't do that. Here, for example, it's no problem. Asia was pretty similar as well. Like Taiwan and Iceland are very similar, but and I know that sounds a very strange thing to say. But yeah, so going from there, the transition and sort of what I could pick up from there has just accelerated my learning to a level that maybe it wouldn't have happened if I'd have stayed. It might have, I don't know, but
yeah.
Like I said, I think that the most important thing for me was being happy, and if I'm happy, I'm going to be giving the best every day to the players I work with. because they're the people that matter the most.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you come across as a much more assured coach. I think in the time that I've known you, what you've added and the confidence that you have, because it translates into confidence, I think, doesn't it? You've coached all over the world, you've coached in different languages, you've coached at different levels, World Cup type stuff all the way down to, an under 11s game on a Sunday morning, whatever, both of which are equally important in different contexts.
Yep.
And yet, it doesn't really mean that there's anything should hold too much fear for you, whatever the future holds for you.
No, I agree with that, and I think I don't like using the term lucky. I've been fortunate for opportunities that have come my way, but I think you make your own sort of fortune. And like when I went out of college back home, I was working 2 days a week part-time there coaching, and then I got another part-time coaching job and another one, sort of working 3 part-time jobs at one time.
Yeah.
Then
I know how hard you've worked, for sure.
Going full-time at the college then and progressing on. There was days where I'd leave my house at 9 a.m. and I'd get back at 11 p.m. And that would be, I'd do say 3-4 days like that coaching and 2 days like that training and playing myself.
Yeah.
And I just think all them opportunities that I opened myself up to has then allowed for this sort of life and being able to experience what other countries have and what other football's going on in the world. And if someone said to me, come and coach our under 9s, no problem. I'd be more than happy to if I'm around. And I would actually, coaching a group of 6-year-olds, I would find more scary than going to work for Barcelona or someone like that.
I am with you 100%. I mean, seriously, that's Lion's Den stuff for me. That's a real challenge, and it takes a particular skill set, and doing it can add layers to your coaching capability, without a doubt.
100%. The biggest thing I've found for me in football, and like you say about confidence and stuff, and there's a reason why people play football and they love it, and it doesn't matter if they're 6 or 36 or 96. They love it because that's the game they fell in love with as a kid. Yeah. And again, stealing this from Louis, we were always looking at, can we bring out the kid in everyone that we're coaching?
Right.
So that for me is why it maybe come across as confident. I don't know. It's just I just treat the young ones like the adults and the adults like the young ones, and find that happy balance. And it seems to work so far. So we'll keep running with it, keep learning, and seeing what happens.
Well, let's say, if I may be so bold, you come across as very confident in your own skin without being too confident, without being cocky or whatever. Just like I say, assured is the word I would use. And as I say, I think back to conversations and spend a little bit of time with you a few years ago, and I see growth and like I say, those layers and that confidence that it brings because of all these amazing experiences. So more power to you. And wow, you're still pretty young, so there's an awful lot more ahead for you. I mean, what are your aims? I know you've got a great gig and a fantastic place at the moment, but what do you think you might fancy doing and turning your hand to in the future?
So I've obviously there's stuff that I want to achieve in football, and that's obviously going through. Hopefully, one day working at the very highest level and winning trophies, whether that's in Spain, Italy, Germany. I'm not gonna say, oh, I must coach this team, because you close off so many opportunities to yourself that, like, I never thought I'd be here. I never thought I'd be in Asia. I didn't know where I was going to go. So for me, am I happy with what I'm doing and where I am? If I am, that's great. Have I got the ability to help players achieve their goals? Because like I said earlier, that at the end of the day, that's why I coach. I don't coach for me. I coach for them. Can I give them that experience or facilitate something where they can strive to be the best they can be? And for me, nothing would be happy if I coached a kid and he goes and signs for Man United. I'd be more happy with that than picking up an FA Cup winners medal, for example. So in terms of that, it's just about the happiness for me, really, and see where it goes. I wouldn't rule out anywhere. Obviously, I don't fancy going to war-torn countries, but but you never know. It could be an amazing opportunity to work with some great people, and you don't know these things till you try it. And my immediate plans is to try and help the team I'm working with stay in the league. If we do that, that'll be the first time they've ever survived in the Women's Premier League over here.
Yeah,
so that's a great achievement for the club and everyone involved. And then I'm contracted here till December, and we'll see if something comes in here. Then that would be fantastic. I'd love to stay, but obviously with the COVID situation and finances and all that sort of stuff, it's a bit up and down at the minute. So no one's happening.
Of course, yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, Jamie, I'm going to wrap it up on that note. First of all, obviously, I just want to say thank you for your time. That hour or more than an hour has flown by, as I expected it would do. Really, really love listening to you talk about football. Love listening to your experiences, and I'm pretty certain that a lot of people out there are going to feel the same. It's an inspirational journey to some degree, but also, there's just small little kind of snippets of experience that you're sharing there that I think, make me reflect. I mean, just that one with the translator and the emotion, for example, that never really occurred to me a huge amount. And I think the people listening to this, if they're coaches particularly, I think will no doubt have learned something and maybe got a little bit of inspiration as well. So I really, really appreciate you giving us some time. Wish you all the best for whatever the future holds, certainly in the short term in Iceland and Reykjavik there with Throttur. And whatever comes in 2021, COVID or no COVID crisis, I'm pretty sure you're prepared for whatever's coming to you.
No, I appreciate that, and thanks for having me on. It's been great. I could talk about football all day, every day, and I'll probably bore a lot of people, but yeah.
Well, listen, kindred spirits, mate. We've done it before, and I'm sure we'll do it plenty in the future. But I think to share some of that with the people who tune into this, I think it was something I really wanted to do, and I'm really pleased that we've done this, and I'm looking forward to how it's received.
No, happy to help, and again, if anyone wants to get in contact about this, then see social media, email. I'm a big believer in answering people that send messages, whether it's yes, I can help, or no, I can't. And so if anyone does enjoy it that much and wants to talk further, then feel free to get in contact.
Top man. Well, you heard the man. So go on. I hope people take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, happy to help.
Good man. Good man. Okay, Jamie, all the best, pal. Thanks so much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Take care, pal. Bye-bye.
Bye.